well, I don't really need to work, which means I can spend tons of time with the family, tons of time homesteading, hunting. What we're able to do now is actually just spend time with the kids, and it doesn't take much help. Like, they're pretty driven and they can learn. You know, if you're working full time, it's not your fault. You're tired from working full time. But if I can be home, and if Rose can be home, like lots, we can help the kids do all sorts of cool stuff.
Jeff and Rose are living an off-grid dream life with their family. This is the story of how they built this life.
Yeah. If you want what everyone else has, then go for it. And if you want something different, like, do it.
So welcome to the show, Jeff and Rose. We're really excited to have you guys on the show. You've been living off the grid in your northern Canadian homestead for 8 years. But yeah, you guys are having an amazing adventure, and we want to dive in and find out where it all started. So why don't you guys tell us, whose crazy idea was it to take this huge family off grid?
Probably my idea.
Yeah. Probably. I like that.
Yeah, and it didn't really start as needing to be off grid. It was just needing to be kind of, fairly independent and out in the woods, somewhere in nature, somewhere where we could have some land and some animals. And so eventually, once we kind of got the hang of that, we actually looked around the province and found a location that was good and a piece of land that was good. And it was cheap like borscht, a 40-acre property, but with good friends. We split the property. We kind of got our 20 and they got their 20. It had no driveway. It had obviously no services.
Fully treed, like it was like a forest.
Yeah,
no fields or anything like that.
It was 20 acres for 20 grand, which is what a guy would what we would have spent on rent for 1 year.
Where do you start? You said this one was fully treed, no road. What are the steps to turning a bare piece of property into something that not only you two could live at, but actually, a family with kids? Where do you go with this?
Well, our approach was to kind of just reset our standard of living down to the camping level. We both love camping and hiking and backcountry and hunting outdoors. So we're totally used to staying in a tent for a week or two. And we thought, well, why don't we just start camping? We'll put up a pop tent, and then as we'll figure out which priorities kind of bubble to the surface, right? And as things kind of came up, and we're like, wow, we really got to deal with this. We dealt with it. so the things that we've built and spent time and our money on, the priorities presented themselves, and we kind of addressed them.
Hey, so here's a question for you, actually. If you took your 5 kids into the woods and there was nothing else except for trees, and you were there for about 15 minutes, what would be the first thing that you need to do first?
5 young kids, it's got to be a bathroom.
I didn't hear you. A bathroom.
Bathroom. Okay, good.
You're staying in a tent, and ahead of time, if you're planning, you might think, oh, I'm going to need a shelter, but I'm going to need water first, and I'm going to need, no, you just need a bathroom. Yep. And so that's the way it went. Like, ever since the first hour on the property, we just kind of let the priorities come to the surface, and then we addressed them.
What did it look like over time? If you had a time lapse of the homestead, week 1 being camping with pooping in a bucket, what did it look like over time, and how much were you investing in it as you went?
Well, so we bought the land. It was about 20 grand. And over the course of the first year, we probably spent $20,000 on the house. And that's like everything, including whatever was in the house. And at the end of that year, we were warm and dry, but it was dark. We had a very simple solar system.
We didn't even have floors, actually.
It was. Wow. Our floors started as dirt, and then we graveled them, and then we tarped them, and it actually was a year and a half before we poured concrete slabs in here. It was about 2 years before we actually had a much more reliable driveway. Mm-hmm. So the road we had to build was a mile long, and if it's wet, like you couldn't drive it.
Yeah.
For the first year and a half, the quad, we would just, if it was wet, we would park at the end of the mile and quad in and quad out. We'd get, Rose would bring in groceries and all 5 kids on 2 quads, and we'd go quads, and they served. It took us 4 or 5 years before the shop was up and closed in, and then had a proper solar system on it. And then that solar system now powers a lot of normal stuff. We got a deep freeze because, of course, we hunt and raise our own meat, so the deep freeze is important. And we have a normal electric fridge. And now it's been 8 years, and our house is not done, and the shop's not done, and nothing's done. But at the same time, we consistently spend more of our energy, our time, and our money on, doing things with the kids, on building gardens, on raising animals, on hunting trips, and spending time with friends, things that are really, really valuable. And that priority list still, it's going to be 100 years before we ever put up a crown molding in this house. it's never going to hit the list, right? So, one of the things that stands out if you come in our house is it's a very simple house. It's square, 30 by 30. We've got 3 bedrooms and kind of like a pantry, or it used to be a bathroom. We now use an outdoor bathroom, but there's no doors. We just have curtains. And it's not that I can't build doors. It would take 2 days, and I'd build some really nice, I'd mill some wood, make some nice doors.
Whoa, what? It only take 2 days?
Yeah, it only takes 2 days.
He just got a new to-do list.
There's always something more important than that.
It's
and
true.
What's cool is when you start and do your own thing, instead of buying a complete product, you realize, you know what? I could invest my time and money in that, or we could have friends over and go make a garden bed and plant something, and that's what we do. We do the other stuff that is just more important.
Yeah.
And I'm just imagining, with this many kids at these ages, going out and building a cabin, and it's not a fun imagination. So this must be, is it something that your whole life have been involved in building? Did you have these skills, or were you just learning as you went?
I wasn't super skilled at building. I had spent, summers and brief periods doing construction. So I definitely felt confident that I could figure out how to build something. But really, actually, I think it was just an attitude that I just thought we could do it. And it's true, there's lots of resources, and there's books, and there's the internet, and there's friends. And if you feel like you can do it, I really think that most people can do it.
I love that advice. That confidence factor is a big one. I think it's a big one in all things homesteading. You have to look at something that, people fail at all the time, that people give up on, people burn out on, and say, no, I can do this. And then when you get, punched in the gut and it doesn't work, you have to say, no, I can do it the next time. I'll try harder and I'll do better. The two biggest things that I find, and again, we have a very different homestead than you guys, but our audience, what I hear holds them back. First, it's just not knowing where to start and being overwhelmed and thinking they can't, right? And you already addressed that, Jeff. Think that you can do it, and you'll be probably able to do it. The other element is that financial freedom. Being held back by being in debt, being tied to so much to your employment, being afraid to make a change or a shift there. You guys have found freedom from that, what you might, a lot of people call the rat race. So tell us about how exactly you got that financial freedom.
We're living on a property and in a house that is a fraction the cost of most of our peers. So if you have a $300,000 mortgage and you need to make regular payments, we spent $30,000 and paid it off in a year and a half. And so by looking at it like camping, it didn't look like hardship. I joke that we lived in a hovel for a couple of years, but it was dirty and not done. But again, by thinking this is just camping, and every day, every week, every month, we're going to make it better. We just kind of took the jump first. Instead of trying to save up a ton of money working a normal life so that we could afford a nice homestead life, we just like bought this one cheap and just did it. Yeah, we'd owned previous properties, and we had a mortgage, and you know, my granddad had always warned us about getting debt. He never liked it. He was like a Depression era guy. But, you know, it's very conventional to get a mortgage, and here we are 25 years old with our first mortgage. But man, after a few years of that, I was like, man, granddad's right. This isn't fun at all. So I thought, you know what, life is freer. Like, you kind of liberate your spirit and your mind, and it took so much weight off. I didn't even realize how much mental capacity that takes when you owe your life to a bank or to, you know, and therefore to an employer. And it's not that stuff's wrong, but you got to know it takes a certain amount of your energy, a certain amount of your capacity.
Yeah.
So get rid of that stuff, and then boom, be imaginative, be creative, take some risk.
I've heard people talk about debt. The best way to describe being in debt is not in the amount of money that you owe, it's in time. You know, 15-year or a 30-year. And when you think about how much of your life you're going to spend servicing that debt, and then you actually put like an idea of, well, I work 8 hours a day, I commute 2 hours a day on, you know, either side of that, so there's 10 hours a day. That's more than half of the day of the prime of your life. You're going to spend more than half of that servicing it. There's certainly a really good argument on the other side to that, saying, well, why don't we approach this differently like you guys did? Find a place that's a lot more like camping at first and work our way up from there, but the whole time not being in service to that debt. I think that's one of the appeals of the tiny house movement. A lot of people don't want to get a mortgage and they feel they can afford that better. You guys went with the land and then built up. At Homesteady from day one, we've talked about, you know, there are pros and cons to everything, right? I think if you asked anybody in the world, hey, would you like to be debt-free without a mortgage? They'd be like, yeah, definitely. And then if you presented what that would require for a lot of people, that's where I think you lose people, right? So you talk about the crown molding was a great one because, you know, it's crown molding. Like, we're all going to live without crown molding. But not having doors is a bigger deal. Other than not having doors, what are some of the bigger sacrifices that someone that either you yourself have experienced, but that someone who is thinking about going into this lifestyle, you mentioned, like, you know, quadding groceries to your house. It sounds exciting if you've never done it, but I'm sure after like the second time you did a grocery run with a quad, it probably was stressful. What are some of the bigger things people are going to have to realize, maybe the less fun side to it, that they're going to have to be ready to give up if they head in this direction with their life?
I don't have running water in my house. That's different. And it's actually funny because people think it's like a hardship for me, but it's one of those things that you just kind of learn to do things in a different way. And now I don't actually want it in my house. So it just works.
We use an outdoor composting toilet, and it took a few years before we fully went outdoor, because there's some cool indoor composting toilet technology. And the really simple ones, that's our favorite, but the outdoor one
is great for most times of the year.
So, AKA not midwinter,
right?
And not mosquito season.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me put a disclaimer on this whole thing. So my good buddy, Dave coined it very well. He says, if you're willing to do with only 90% of something, or have something 90% of the time, you can do it for 10% of the cost. So for example, our driveway for those first couple of years, it worked great 90% of the time. And it cost 10% of the complete driveway. And eventually, because the driveway was a significant priority for us to be able to consistently, reliably drive in and out, we spent the money, but it cost a lot. It ended up costing as much as the land over a couple of years. If you can do without something once in a while, you can probably have that thing for a fraction of the cost. Water, so rainwater, we have as much rainwater as we want almost all the time. But there are a couple weeks, for us it's midwinter, where we get like a little bit tight and, we scrimp and save, right? However, the rainwater system costs literally with the tanks, and we got a little pump, and, it's $2,000. But a well around here in this country would be like 30 grand.
Yeah, no.
And man, you add that up, add up the cost of the well and the septic system and like a normal house, and you're hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what people don't realize is that because our lifestyle, because we're okay with a little bit of, inconvenience or a lifestyle that's not fully 100% like reliable, it allows us to do so much stuff. So now, like, I kind of work, I don't really need to work. And when I do, like, it's, I can pick and choose, which means I can spend tons of time with the family, tons of time homesteading, hunting. Our family has consistently gone on a usually like an overseas trip a year. So we do some volunteering, and so we're exposing our kids to different cultures and different languages, and also to people who are way less fortunate than we are. You want to help your kids and help them become great people and pursue their interests. And we were there, like, I worked a normal job and we actually worked a lot, and you just don't have the energy or the time.
No.
And as a parent, I think a lot of people, they feel kind of bad, right? They're like, I wish I had more time to spend with my kids. And you might have more money and be able to go to Disneyland or buy crown moldings for them. But, what we're able to do now is actually just spend time with the kids. And it doesn't take much help. Like, they're pretty driven and they can learn. And if they want a project, like, they just need a little bit of help.
Yeah.
But, if you're working full time, it's not your fault. You're tired from working full time. But if I can be home, and if Rose can be home, like, lots, we can help the kids do all sorts of cool stuff. And so, they're able to, they can do regular academic type of school, but they can, they've all kind of got little business ideas, and one runs honeybees and leather work and pottery and carpentry. Like, they're using power tools and building stuff and
garden markets and
planting the gardens and and then enjoyable stuff. Like, they love getting out in the outdoors. And as a young person, 12, 13, 14, like, to feel confident and have your parents confident to go wander a mile in the woods in like real wilderness, that's like a coming of age type of empowerment, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think the kids feel, I think they are growing up very confident, and they won't know, there's a million things they won't know, but they'll be confident that they can learn stuff. And I just think they're going to do great. And like, those are experiences that a lot of our peers with the crown moldings, they can't do that. They can't take 5 weeks, take their kids to Central America, right?
Yeah.
So there's both sides. Like, it depends what people want.
Yeah.
Like, if you want what everyone else has, then go for it. And if you want something different, like, do it.
But it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
I am going to lose my crown molding sponsor for the podcast. But anyway.
I can't believe that.
It's big money in crown molding, man. Come on. If someone wants to, maybe they're past 35, maybe they're 55, maybe whatever, right? But they want to make some kind of change. How can they map out simply in front of them? How did you guys map it out? What would you suggest they set as kind of like mile markers for their own freedom, whether it's 35, 45, whatever it is?
Well, people are in such different positions, right? And depending on where you live, dictates the price of land and what you can do on the land. So it's super hard to envision all those different possibilities.
Right.
But the beauty is, like, if we did it, anyone can. Like, we didn't get any inheritance. We're not the trust fund kids. Like, we didn't make millions. We've always been a single income family, ever since we started having kids. And 5 kids are expensive.
Oh,
You probably know that.
Amen.
And not because you have to throw tons of money at them, but they do eat. They eat a lot.
I'm trying to figure out how to bypass that one. It just doesn't work.
But if we do it, if we can do it, I think so many people can. And there's got to be a way for everyone, I think, to just take what is normal, maybe what's normal all around them, and just say, just a second, what if this wasn't normal? Like, what do I really need? Like, what do I really need to survive? What do I really want to do? And do I have to do it here? Do I have to have this stuff to do it with? And really, some people will, are into the tiny house. Some people are into minimalism. Some people are into like homesteading and off-gridding. But to me, it's all a way of finding a way to do, just boil it down to the essentials. And if you can boil her down, if you can deal without a few things once in a while, you can save a huge amount of cost. And that's what you need. Like, it's hard to get wealthy, but it's not that hard to cut your costs down. You just have to do it. Like, anyone can do that.
You want to see more from Jeff and Rose? This was one of our favorite videos from their channel. Click here to watch it. And if you want to hear the second half of this interview, where we go into homeschooling, more about the financial side of supporting this lifestyle, and more, become a Homesteady Pioneer by clicking here. You'll gain access to all our full-length interviews, bonus content. Learn about it here.